keeping it real with Shannon.
Until I looked at myself in the mirror one day and I was disgusted with what I saw. So I said, you gotta make a change, man.
It's all about fun, laugh, and get through life. That's what it is.
I find you have everything to gain with Christ, and without him, everything to lose.
Said I'm gonna lay you down, just like a bridge over troubled water.
Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon Live. So I want to say hello to my co-host tonight, Dr. Vanessa DeDanzi and Miss Tiffany Shannon. Hello, co-host.
Hi.
Have y'all been keeping cool? Because it's been 100 degrees outside for the last couple of days.
Trying to.
Definitely.
Well, tonight we're going to be talking about a very important topic, mental health issues. Have you been having any issues? Because, I know how y'all are, You might be having issues because you're closed in, you're shut in, you can't go visit your friends, you can't hang out or whatever. So how have you been handling it?
It wasn't bad at first. I was getting used to being at home. I didn't care. But now that it's like summer, I do want to be out. I want to go out with my friends to dinner or have a drink or something. And, now I'm starting to feel it.
Yeah. Now here she is want to go drinking now, you see?
Well, you don't want all the fun to go away. You want to keep that momentum going.
Well, we're going to talk to our special guest who's going to be joining us, Dr. Ayana Ali. She's a mental health therapist. So maybe she can help us, in case we are having some anxiety. Like sometimes I feel moody. I don't know if I'm not depressed or anything, but sometimes I do get moody. So I don't know if that has anything to do with being shut in or not, but I'll ask her. She come on, is this part of me being shut in and everything? But we're going to talk to her tonight about some of the mental health issues that some of the clients that she deals with may be having in this time of crisis. So we want to welcome her to the show. Dr. Ayani Ali, how are you?
Hi.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, as you know, we are in a crisis right now with the pandemic. So there's so many areas of going on, people losing their jobs, people getting sick, and so what I wanted to ask you, to start off with is like some of the clients that you deal with, what are some of the issues they're coming to you with? Like what is really going on with them in this time of crisis?
Right. Well, certainly people are concerned about COVID. A lot of people are reaching out to me because they're experiencing an increase in anxiety and they feel that their stress levels are rising. Some people feel that their stress levels are off the chart because they are concerned about the possibility of, becoming infected with the virus themselves, or they have been affected by the virus either personally or they've lost family members. So there's grief and loss and bereavement that people are coming to me with. People are also stressed out because, some people have lost their jobs, they've lost their health insurance, and it just seems that, people's lives are being upended by this virus. So certainly people just feel like they need extra support at this time. The fact that people can't go outside as much as they want to and they can't enjoy themselves with family and friends is also very stressful. And then on top of all of that, there's all of this racial unrest and all of this, these political issues that are also impacting people. And so everything's happening kind of all at once and is really causing people to feel stressed and overly concerned about their well-being and the well-being of others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the recommendations when you talk to them that you tell them that they can do, to make themselves feel better or to feel that there is hope? I mean, regardless of what we're in, I always feel there is hope and there is always a light at the tunnel.
Right. Well, I think it depends on what people are presenting with, what their presenting problems are. I think definitely for people who are presenting with anxiety around COVID, regarding the transmission of it or, contracting it, there are simple things that they can do, such as wearing masks, following all the CDC and World Health Organization guidelines. They can make certain that they are trying to keep their immune system as boosted as possible so that from a physical standpoint, they may be better able to fight off the virus if they come in contact with it. We were talking a couple of minutes about self-care. If you know that you're extremely anxious during this time because of all that's going on in the world, now is the time to really be concentrating more on yourself and making sure that you're doing things that will help you feel more settled, as opposed to more shaken and stirred. So if you are a spiritual person, practicing prayer, practicing meditation, deep breathing, exercising, yoga, these are things that people can definitely do to help their bring their stress levels down. And there are all these studies that indicate that if your stress levels down and if your anxiety levels are down, that you will be more healthy overall. Also, if people are experiencing stress and anxiety to the point where they feel like it's interfering with their everyday lives, it might be a good idea for them to talk to their medical doctor, as well as seek the help of a therapist, a licensed therapist or psychiatrist if necessary. So there's no shame in talking to someone. Sometimes you just need to get some things off your chest. And so now it's a time that I would encourage people to reach out for extra help if they need it, through a therapist or psychiatrist.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, that's important for people not to wait for when they out there trying to seek help. It's really important to get as help as soon as they identify that they have some kind of issue or some kind of distress.
You're absolutely right, because all the statistics show that the longer that you wait with an untreated mental illness, and anxiety is a mental illness, depression is a mental illness. Sometimes when we think of mental illness, we think of things like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, but anxiety and depression are also mental illnesses. All the studies indicate that the longer that you wait to treat a mental illness, the more unlikely you are to, the more likely you are to suffer, and the harder it may be to treat. So you're absolutely right. Reaching out when you begin to feel disturbed or you begin to feel stressed is better for your overall health than waiting and letting all those feelings build up and pile on.
And how can you recognize when? I was just gonna ask. Now, how can you recognize when you are feeling anxiety or depression, especially depression, because that's not easily recognized.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So, everybody feels sad. We have things about, about which we feel sad, and we have disappointments in life, and it's not uncommon to, feel disappointed about certain things. I would say the difference between being sad and being depressed is when you feel your sleep is compromised. So either you're not able to sleep or you're sleeping too much. When your eating is disturbed, so if you're overeating as a means of comfort, or if your appetite has just just totally been lost or reduced, if you are feeling hopeless, if you're feeling worthless, there's a difference between feeling that nothing will ever get better or I'm not worth anything than thinking I'm sad about this particular issue. If you have the what is called anhedonia, which is you're no longer able to derive pleasure from things that you used to derive pleasure from. So if you had hobbies that you typically would participate in, and they brought you joy, or they brought you happiness, and you don't experience that anymore, or you're no longer fulfilled by relationships that at one time brought you joy, that's usually a sign that things are crossing over from sadness into what we call clinical depression. Same thing with anxiety. Sometimes we all have things that are coming up. Let's say we have a talk show that we're going to be participating in. We might feel anxious, and we might say, I hope it goes right. Well, there's a difference between feeling a little anxious about something that's coming up and then having an excessive amount of worry to the point that you're not able to function. Are you so anxious about contracting COVID that you don't want to go outside, or that you're washing your hands excessively, or you're afraid to you have to do this big elaborate ritual about cleaning before you go out of your house and before you come in? When things begin to get in the way of your everyday functioning, that's when you know that there's an issue for which you likely need to seek professional help.
Yes, I wanted to.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
I just want to add, can you identify once individuals have post-traumatic stress syndrome, that these visions and stuff, elements that they're going through over a period of 30 days, this is something that can affect them long term.
So that's a really good point, because we are seeing an increase not only in depression and anxiety around this COVID issue, we're also seeing people coming to mental health practitioners with PTSD. So people who perhaps were sick themselves and spent time in the hospital or spent time on a ventilator, or were just so sick to the point that perhaps they thought that they would die, are now hyper vigilant. If they have a cough or if they start to feel a little bit of malaise, they begin to panic and think, okay, well, maybe I have COVID again, maybe I'm going to die. So this hyper vigilance and this excessive worry about physical health, it could be something that people experience as a result of PTSD. You also mentioned visions. So people actually have flashbacks. So people who have spent time in the hospital, or perhaps people who have witnessed the death or the severe illness of a family member, may actually have instances where those memories are so vivid that they feel like they're actually reliving them. And that's an example of PTSD. That's a symptom of PTSD. So yes, what I think is going to happen is that we will feel the effects of COVID for quite some time. And I think it will not be uncommon to see people dealing with PTSD for quite some time after this period.
So I want to ask you about the eating. I want to ask you about the eating. Because I want to distinguish between, like you said, like people may eat more or they eat, for comfort or whatever like that. But I mean, I just talk about myself personally, like that. Because I mean, I was eating before the pandemic.
I know, you know exactly what she was doing.
I like to cook, you know what I'm saying? I like to cook and bake and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't do as much before the pandemic because, I was busy on the outside, so I didn't get a chance to do. But now that I've been shut in, I've been doing more baking and more cooking and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't feel like I'm depressed or stressed out because I don't have anything to be stressed out about and depressed about. But I mean, I do find myself constantly eating. And I don't know, for some reason, sometimes, like, even after I eat, maybe like a half an hour later, I feel like I'm still hungry. Now, in my mind, I know I'm not hungry. Right. You know what I'm saying? But it's like something is talking to me saying, okay, well, you can go back and get, something else to eat or to snack on or something like that. And you're not supposed to be going to get it. Right. So, I mean, sometimes I think like, well, why am I doing this? Because I mean, I'm not depressed or stressed out or anything like that. So, but since I was eating before, is this just a continuation of me loving to eat and, and stuff, like that? Because I know Vanessa said before, we need to, give up our heavy food and eat light and all of this kind of stuff. So, like I was saying, do I have to give up my macaroni and cheese and collard greens and all that kind of stuff?
I think here's the thing. A lot of us are eating more because we're home more often, and because instead of when we're in offices or we're out and about, we don't have to go downstairs and, buy something from the store. We just walk to our refrigerator and it's right there. So I think part of it is just location. I think if people find themselves eating a pint of ice cream or eating excessively to the point where they're making themselves sick, or when they're putting on a great deal of weight in a rapid period of time, that's when it's really problematic, as opposed to this proximity. Yeah.
Okay. So all right. So now I got to start eating apples and broccoli and spinach and
carrot.
Yeah. But you're off the hook. Don't worry.
So now I got to go outside and be jogging around the block and all of this.
That will help. It can help.
And exercise also reduces our stress levels, our stress hormones, cortisol. So if you're going to eat more, just run around the block more. It balances out.
Yeah. Well, ladies, let's take a quick minute. Whoever wants to go to the refrigerator can head to the refrigerator.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break so I can run to the refrigerator and get the rest of my pie and eat it. And we'll be right back.
Why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others.
For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Hi, if you're just joining us, we're talking about mental health issues, and our special guest is Dr. Ayana Ali. Now, before we went to break, we were talking about the eating and all of that kind of stuff, but I did want to say that they said that if you do get the COVID, that it is important that you exercise.
Yeah.
Because
to keep the lungs strong. Yeah, you want making sure you're getting air in and you're pushing air out. So they have said that. And, depending on how severely sick you are, exercise might be just walking around your house or walking, up and down the hallway. But any kind of physical activity that you can tolerate, they have recommended to keep the lungs strong and the breathing, consistent.
Right. I will also add, if you do have COVID, in addition to those to exercise, try to refrain from laying on your back. People don't understand that the lungs are heavier, mostly on your back. So as you lay on your back, they fill up with fluids, and this is how people are suffocating with COVID. So if you have COVID, experiencing type of COVID-19 symptoms, try to lay on your stomach, on the side, and continue to walk and exercise.
But the thing about this COVID, is there's so many things that they telling you if you have symptoms this, you have symptoms that. But then there's so many people that I know that have gotten it, and they don't have any symptoms whatsoever. They're not sick. They didn't have to go to the hospital. They might just be feeling tired, or they might just, but no fever, no sickness, and anything like that. So to me, that's the scary thing, that you could be walking around with it and don't even know it unless you just happen, to go to the doctor, for a checkup or whatever, something like that. That's the scary part to me, because why don't you have symptoms? I mean, like the other people who really got sick and had to be put on ventilators, like why everyone doesn't get sick like that?
Well,
is it your body? Is it?
But part of that problem is people, especially Black and brown people, we're presenting differently for COVID. We're presenting differently for COVID. So when you go to the hospital, it's a lot of health inequities, health disparities that are turning people away from the hospital, where they're not getting adequate care because they're not presenting with the status quo of how the majority of people are presenting with this disease. Well, it's not really a disease, it's an illness.
Yeah,
infection, a virus.
I think that's a really good point, Dr. Danzine, because as people of color, as Black people, not only, as people, not only do we have a right to be nervous and concerned about COVID, but as Black people and brown people, we have even more of a right to be concerned. And so you can understand why people are so anxious, because if you know that Black and brown people are dying at much higher rates, and that Black and brown people are always facing health inequities and are often turned away at hospitals or often not believed by their medical practitioners, and you're a Black person, imagine how scary the thought of being diagnosed with this illness is. So it's not only about the medical piece. Nobody wants to get sick, but nobody also wants to think about the fact that they might be turned away from a facility, and that being turned away might actually result in them worsening or dying. And I wish I could say that I don't know instances where this has happened, but personally in my family, I had a family member who passed away who initially presented at the hospital. She was a medical professional. She said, I know I have COVID-19. They turned her away. She went back 3 days later. She was admitted, and unfortunately she passed away. So she was a medical professional saying, I know I have COVID. So imagine how scary that is for people. So it's not just about, are people coughing on you, or are we going to get sick? This could be a matter of life and death for people. So the challenge that this poses to people's mental health is so heavy, and it's so strong that it's deep. It's really deep.
Why do you think that the Black and brown community are dying at such a higher rate? Is it because of underlying illnesses we have, or because we're not being treated correctly in the hospital. I mean, because this is a new COVID. Nobody ever dealt with COVID. So everyone's learning as they go along.
Well, I mean, I think it's because we're not being believed as patients. It's because we're not being treated as with as much care. But more, so all of that though falls under racism, institutional racism.
Right.
So there are tremendous health disparities in this country, and unfortunately, the way that you show up in terms of your physical presentation sometimes dictates the way that you are treated and the quality of care that you get. So, if I could say one word, it's racism.
Exactly. That's what I was going to touch on. Because even before COVID, we saw these inequities and health disparities in equitable treatment in disproportionate communities. So this is nothing new. It's just a nuance for another way for them to,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, they talk about it with when it, time to deliver children, that type of thing as well, being discriminated against or not believed about, certain symptoms that you're saying you're having, and women were dying at a high rate, for no reason.
Yeah, Black women are dying, during maternity, during pregnancy and childbirth more than, other women for the same reasons.
And you would think living in the United States that you wouldn't think the maternal mortality rate is so high. It's higher than third world countries.
Yes, and here we are in America.
Yes.
Yeah. But the thing about it is I shouldn't say I don't understand. I guess I should understand. But like I was saying earlier before when I was talking, Vanessa, like, okay, every time something happens, right, we say our communities don't have the facilities and the care that we're supposed to get, right? And this is always a big talk every time something happens. But then what happens in between that time, the next time something happens that this stuff was not put in the community, so people can get the care that they needed, or just like when this COVID hit, we didn't know it was coming, but because we had a problem from before, that the health care should have been put in place in the community. So what happens in between that nothing ever gets put in the community? I don't understand, because the people in the community have to come out and get with their politicians and stuff in their areas and stuff, and fight and make sure that they get what they need for their community and stuff. You got to come out of this house and come to meetings and stuff like that and fight for what you want in your community, because they're not going to bring it to you, because after this disease goes, this virus leaves, we're going to be hit with something else. And the same conversation is going to be again that we don't have the correct medical stuff.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I mean, this is why voting is important. This is why, putting pressure on your elected officials is important. Bushwick was one of the areas in Brooklyn that was the most affected by COVID. And it was one of the last neighborhoods to get testing. So, I mean, it's horrible, but this is an example of why you have to participate in the political and civic process. This is also why you have to advocate. We were talking about self-care. Advocacy is self-care. You have to demand that what you need in your community is going to be delivered to you. And then in cases like my practice, if you don't see it in your community, be it. So when I was looking for a mental health professional, there were very few Black women that I could find. And so I realized that was an issue. So I decided that I wanted to, help other Black women find professionals like myself. So I could have gone and worked somewhere else and made loads of money, but I wanted to serve my community. So, sometimes you have to be the change that you want to see.
Exactly.
So, that's important too.
Yes. Then one of the things too, that the community needs to hold their constituents accountable.
You're right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's the only way you're going to get anything done is you got to come out. You can't stay behind closed doors and talk. You got to write letters. You got to be at the community board meetings. You got to be at all of those meetings and talking about what is missing in your community to get things done, because it's like a continuation. This goes on and on and on and on, every time something happens.
Yeah.
We're talking about the same thing each time.
But you know why also, Lottie, is because you have institutional racism that work in silos. So it creates a bigger platform of systemic racism. So people say people say, "Oh, well, the system's not fair." No, the system is working how it's been designed to work.
Been designed to work. You're absolutely right, Dr. Jadan. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So.
Okay, but you saying that, but it's the same thing. Unless I'm misunderstanding what all this protesting is about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is to make the change and everything, because I thought that's what all of this was going to be. So that's why I'm saying, even with what's happening right now that's going on, is this going to be part of the change that you're going to make sure that your community gets some of the stuff that they need? Because then what is the point of just keep doing this over and over and then nothing happens in the community? We know it's racism and all like that. And to me, I don't think in my lifetime racism is going to go away. I don't think so. Maybe it is one day it'll go away, but I don't think so. We just got to find a way around this racism and get things that we need and get some stuff in our community, you know, that's going to help us with our health issues, our education. You know, why is this school got books and this school doesn't have books? You know, when I worked at the Board of Ed, I said to the parents that, no, you have to come out to the meeting for your school to fight for your kids to get what they need for their school. They're not coming to your house. You have to come out to the PTA meeting. You have to come out to the curriculum night, all of this kind of stuff. Then you got to learn to be creative. Don't wait for everybody to always give you something. Be creative. Do a fundraiser and buy books that your kids need for school. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't just depend on people to do everything for you.
Yeah, very true. Well, ladies, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
We're back. We're talking about issues in our community and what we need to do. Well, you know, I get excited about everything. You know what I'm saying? So I just no, because I you know, I'm just tired of people sitting back thinking everything is going to come to them when it's not going to come to them. You got to get out and do some things for yourself and fight for whatever it is that you want, regardless of what it is. That's how I look at it, stuff like that. Because I'm just saying that just keep talking about the same stuff over and over and over. That's what I feel that we do.
I agree.
Yes.
That's the only way that you can get ahead or get anything done. And hopefully, you know, we wake up and realize that.
I agree.
And now is the time to do it since Black Lives Matter.
They do.
Black Lives Matter now.
Yes.
This is the time to get everything that you need for your community.
Yeah.
Yes, even though the community needs to be at the table for policy making, decision making, planning, implementation of programs, community needs to be at the table, and that's part of the problem.
That conversation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
That was my point. They need to. You got to come out and be at the table to help make the decisions of what's going on. Everybody else is at the table making your decisions and stuff, and then after the decision is made, then you want to complain about it. This is what I'm saying. You know, just like when they come in your neighborhood and they're building all those condominiums and condos and putting jails and juvenile jails in your neighborhood.
Gentrification. A whole other topic.
Well, and maybe if you was out at the meeting, it wouldn't. The juvenile jail wouldn't be in your neighborhood. Why is it there's not other neighborhood they put it in?
But you know why they told them that jail is there, right? They said, "Oh, they convinced the parents you'd be closer to your kids," and they went for it. You know, that's a whole other topic. With
we can save this topic for the after show, ladies.
Alrighty.
We're out of time now, unfortunately. So let's save it for the after show.
Okay, so it's time to go. So we want to thank you, Dr. Olive, for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna have to take your advice, you know, so at least I know I'm not depressed. I can just continue to eat. So I'm not depressed. So
I didn't say that.
So thank you for joining us. And if you want to join us for the after show, if you have some questions for Dr. Oliver asked her she'll be around for a few minutes to ask questions. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank
And
you.
as always, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
Thank you so much, Ms. Oliver. But I mean, truthfully, you know, I mean, I hate when I have to get excited and stuff like that. But you know, when I had to deal with the people in the community, I had to deal with the people at the board. You know, and I see what happens when people don't come out. I mean, we used to fry chicken. We used to do everything to get them to come to the meetings and things like that. But that wasn't important to them. But then when something happened, then they want to blame us for what happened when you didn't come.
You know, I think sometimes what happens, and it, you know, it does have to do with mental health. You know, motivation sometimes is very connected to our mental health. So sometimes I think people do feel hopeless, and they feel that, you know, they know there's an issue, but they're not exactly sure how to attack it. You know, if people suffer from self-esteem issues, they might feel like, well, you know, what can I do to help? You know, so I think that, you know, we want to encourage people that what they can contribute, they should, that their voice is important and that it needs to be heard. And that if they're struggling, you know, that sometimes there is improvement in joining yourself and making yourself a part of a community and feeling more involved. So, you know, that's how I always kind of tie it to the mental health piece, and that sometimes it's not just that people are lazy, sometimes there's other things going on. And we want to, you know, extend grace, but we also want people to, you know, get involved and join us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Well,
people
you
say,
know what? It's like another example of just like Congressman John Lewis. You know, he passed away and everything, and I mean, I just feel so hurt, you know, over his death and stuff like that. Because, you know, when you look back over his life, his legacy, and it hurts me that when we look at those real clips of when they was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and they was beat almost to death. And I say now, when people look at that, they did that in order for us to be able to go vote. Right. And then you don't want to go vote after people lost their lives and beaten to death for us to be able to go vote. And then you talk, well, what we going to vote for? They're not going to do it. You know, all of that stuff that doesn't even make any sense. And here's someone that you see live through this, who fought for us to have this vote. And this is your attitude towards even going to vote. And that's the same thing in your community and stuff.
Right. Well, I guess this is why we educate people, you know, because we have people who are very aware of what their, you know, their history is, and they know why it's important to vote. And then we have people who don't know. And, you know, so, you know, this is a prime time to talk about, you know, the civil rights movement and to talk about what our ancestors, you know, like John Lewis have done for us and how hard they had to fight, and hope that we can be an encouragement to people who maybe don't, you know, haven't previously considered voting or haven't participated in the civic process, you know, and he's a shining example of, you know, when people become aware of what, you know, our ancestors and our forefathers have done, perhaps they will be more motivated to participate in the process.
But I'm glad you spoke about history. Before anybody can talk about history or really pin it down to the root of history, they need to change the history books. And who's telling the story? Who's telling the narrative of the history?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're not teaching our history. I mean, besides the 1 month that they give us.
Right. And that's
but I mean, I guess it's us that should be teaching it at home as well. So, I mean, that's the downside. I do too, that our generation actually somewhat have it too easy. And they didn't have to go through that process of not being able to vote, or you have the segregation of sitting in the back of the bus, or you can't go to this store or that store. So they don't understand that experience. And now, I can go in any store. So until you understand that and know what it's like, I think they're still going to have that same mentality. I don't need to go out and vote.
Right. Yeah, well, we have to change the narrative. We have to begin to create the narrative, So yes, we have to be the ones doing the educating. We have to be the ones, shaping the models and the treatment, modalities, and coming up with ideas and coming up with books and literature. Because if we're not in charge of the narrative, the narrative will be skewed. But the more the more we educate ourselves, and the more we educate our children, and the more we educate our community, the more they'll understand the importance of what we're trying to say to them. So, I strongly believe in making sure that not only are we leaving financial legacies, but that we're leaving educational legacies for people. So you want to educate your children, you want to educate your family, you want to educate your clients, your patients, whoever it is that you're working with. You want to make sure they know their history and they know the facts.
Well, okay then. So what do we do then when we do educate them? When we have people that we educate about different things in the community, voting, whatever, you giving them the information, you giving them stuff that's written out and whatever, and they still not interested in coming out. But they will talk about what's not going on and what they're not getting in the community. But you have educated them about. I mean, I have even offered to take people to the poll. I'll come by and pick you up and take you to the poll. You don't have to be that educated to go to the poll, because when you get to the poll, they show you how to vote. They would even go behind the thing and show you how the paper works and everything.
Right.
So sometimes when people keep using that as an excuse, see, I don't buy that all the time. The only thing I would buy if you tell me you can't read or something like that, But because I know at the polls they will assist you and show you how to do, fill out the form and everything for you to come in and vote. What I see is that I don't know. I just don't know what it is that you don't see. If you haven't learned anything in the last 4 years, then there's nothing else to be said.
But you know what, that Lonnie,
you haven't gotten it in the last 4 years. Well, 3.5 for the time is not up yet. Then what else is there to say?
Well, the thing is that people need to prioritize what's important.
Right.
What's affecting them, what's affecting their family, what's affecting things around them. They have no purpose to really to prioritize. A lot of people are just going with the status flow and just accepting things as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people feel disenfranchised. I think they feel like disconnected from the conversation.
Yes.
They don't necessarily see how they can't necessarily connect all the dots, like voting, what does that mean for me? And so I think that one of the things that we have to do is, you continue to educate. It doesn't matter how many times you told somebody something. If you can continue to talk to them, but we also need to draw the lines so people connect A all the way through Z. So you vote, and this means that you elect someone who may bring jobs into your community. If you have jobs, then you can support your family and you have opportunities. We have to really go all the way down the line for people and make them feel a part of the process, because if they don't feel that they're a part of the process, of course they're not going to participate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes I feel that from my experience of dealing, particularly when because I always go back to when I was dealing with the people at the board of ed, with parents and stuff like that. I mean, there was incident when you say about educating people. I want to educate the parents of how the school system works. So when they would come to the office and there was a problem with the child, blah blah whatever. If you want to get this for the child or whatever, and you would tell the parent, look, I want you to go back to the school and talk to the principal. And I want you to say to the principal exactly what I tell you, because I know how they operate and what they work. This is what you go back and say to them. Now, rather than them going back telling what I said to them to tell the principal, they would go back and be said, oh, well, Miss Shannon said, well, you're not going to do that. Excuse me? I'm trying to help you, and you going back and telling something, trying to get me in trouble? So now, why would I want to help you now?
But you know why is that, right, Lottie?
No, I know. I'm trying to figure it out because I'm saying to the parent, like,
I would tell you a point. In part, when you're talking to these parents, a lot of them themselves have IEPs.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
A lot of them themselves.
Right. And a lot of times people, you know, they get nervous or, you know, they may not understand necessarily, you know, why you're telling them to do certain things. They may not understand the basis for the instructions. You know, I really believe, you know, through my work with people that the majority of people have good intentions. Sometimes people are just, you know, misinformed or misunderstood. And so, you know, I want to concentrate on the best in our community. And I want to say that there are parents who, you know, they care about their kids, but they're just, you know, sometimes at a loss as to what to do. And so we just want to try to help them along, you know. But we keep trying.
Reach out for help. Yeah, and they won't reach out for help because they don't know that they even need help.
Right. You're absolutely right. I mean, this is
that's what I'm saying. When you're reaching out to help them, you know what? To me, I've learned that some people don't want your help.
That's true.
They don't want your help. They don't want your help because if you're reaching out to them and you giving them everything that they need, I've even helped people like getting a job. They were, oh, Miss Shannon, can you help me get a job or whatever? Okay, so you call the people, ask them, you know, if they could come in for the interview or whatever. And when time comes, you can't even find the person. But then why are you asking me to help you for this?
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. So sometimes you can't help people. You can't help people.
You can't always help.
Well, you can only help if you want to be helped.
Right.
Right. You have to want
and so that's where you focus your efforts.
Yes.
Well, we'll continue to try to help them. I'll still, you know, continue to try to do the best I can or whatever. But sometimes it's like, you know what?
You don't have the energy no more for it.
They just drain you.
That's when you refer them to me.
Well, I'm saying.
Call Ayana, she can help you.
Yes. There's people that just drain you.
I mean, you know, we're joking.
They drain you.
The thing is, we're joking and we're laughing, right? But I do think that there are like mental health implications for all of what we're talking about. You know, so when you see people who are totally disconnected from the system, and when you see people who, in spite of being provided information or despite being provided with opportunities, can't take it, I think that speaks to like a larger community or societal kind of communal or societal inability to see a brighter future, you know. So if someone is experiencing hopelessness, you know, and even if you're presenting them with tools or information, if they don't really see the possibility of things getting better or things changing, that's why they're not accepting the help that you're offering them. So it's not necessarily that they don't appreciate your work. It's just that, you know, you're dealing with people probably who have been so beaten down and have been so used to being disappointed or told, you know, I'm going to help you and then not receive the help, that it's difficult for them to even take a chance and believe that what you're telling them is true. I mean, and though that again, you know, is an effect of institutional racism, historical racism, centuries of Black people and brown people being treated as less than and being, you know, hoodwinked and bamboozled and underserved and all of those things. So, you know, sometimes on its face, something looks like one thing, but it's usually deeper, and it's usually more about an inability to see a brighter possibility.
Well, I hope so. And like I said, being now that we're in the Black Lives Matter era, where now everybody wants to help, you know, the situation and you know, help the people. You know, it's just like I told my friend. I said, when you see the differences is when you go back to work. Once you go back to work, then you can see what your environment is going to be. Or are you going to get that promotion? Do you have to fight for the raise? Do you have to do all of those kind of things that you did before? So this way you will see where things are changing or not and stuff. Because now is the time to take advantage of everything. So now, hey, we matter. So let's take advantage of whatever we can get while the getting is good.
Right.
That's how I look at it, you know. But if anyone doesn't have any questions, anyone for any questions or anything? If not, then
No
we'll say
question.
goodbye, Tiffany. Okay. So we want to thank you again. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, joining, watching. Keep watching. We're on every Tuesday at 8:00 p.m. Thank you for joining us, and thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Ollie. And
Y'all.
I'm a co-host, Vanessa, all the way from Panama. From Panama.
You still in Panama?
Yes. And Miss Tiffany Shannon, we'll thank you. So, all right. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
It's